I'm looking at John Geary with long white hair. Wow.
Yep.
Never would recognize you.
You can't get haircuts either, eh?
Haven't had a haircut since February of last year.
John, you look like a biker.
Every now and then my wife gives me a trim, but that's it.
No, you look like a biker, John. Hair.
All right, everyone, let's get started. Hello, TMAC members and guests. For those of you who don't know me, I am Katrin Duncan of Destination Ontario, and I'm also your TMAC National Board PD Chair. It's my pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar, a collaboration between TMAC National PD and the Atlantic provinces, presenting Ayngelina Brogan as our speaker. Some quick housekeeping. Please do mute your lines to prevent the background noise. The presentation is about 30 minutes in length, and there's lots of time for questions, and do use the chat function for your questions throughout. We are recording this webinar, so it will be available afterwards. And now, without further ado, it is my great pleasure to introduce the host of today's event, Ashley Cottar of Development Counselors International, DCI Canada. Ashley, over to yours.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Katrin. So I know everyone was probably expecting Tanya Kadikian, my colleague, today. So I'm sorry to disappoint, but I am here and I'm very excited to be here today. And I cannot wait to learn about creating video content from one of the best content creators herself, Ayngelina Brogan. Ayngelina has been expertly operating one of the top and most mouthwatering culinary travel sites in North America since 2010. And with all of these years of experience under her belt, she not only understands how to create content that her audience wants to consume, but she knows how to use this content to effectively grow her following. So we are so fortunate today that we have the opportunity to learn from Ayngelina firsthand. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to you, Ayngelina, to get the session started.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to my kitchen. Today is going to be a very informal discussion. I am not sharing any stats or charts or anything very complicated. What I wanted to do was just to share my experience in the last 8 months of working with mobile video and hopes to inspire you. And so let's get to the presentation. All right, so the 3 things that I want to talk about today is how Facebook is the best platform to quickly gain a specific audience, how to, with simple ways, increase reach on Facebook posts, and then lastly, how to plan for a mobile video. So I will go over some time planning, equipment, and resources. And so because of this, I'm going to have 2 question periods. The first question period will be addressing the first and second point. So we'll be talking about my strategy for using Facebook and approaching video with mobile. And then the second part of it, I'm going to leave for the technical aspects about the resources for mobile video, my equipment, editing, anything that you have like that. Those technical things we can leave. A bit about myself. So my site is Bacon is Magic, and it is 11 years old. My background is actually in public relations. So I worked at an ad agency in Toronto for 10 years before taking a career break. And back in 2010, blogging was just a personal journal each day. And so we have seen that change quite a bit in the last 11 years. Blogging has changed. I'm now focused on culinary travel and international recipes at home. The change really for me in the last year was coming back to Nova Scotia because I have been based in Cuba for the last 2 years. And thankfully, my site, because it focuses also on recipes, was able to save me during this pandemic as all of my travel content was basically rendered useless. And so I also decided at this time that I would do something that I had always wanted to do. I've shot recipes over the years, both with my camera and with a phone, but I've always used an editor. And so I thought, if not now, when? I had the time to actually teach myself how to edit video. And it was something I wanted to do because after 11 years of writing on my site, I wanted to show people what I was experiencing instead of sharing it through the words that I wrote. Because to be honest, I am never going to win a Pulitzer. I know my limitations. And so I really wanted to focus on video, and so people could experience things that I did. You can find me on Facebook at Bacon is Magic. And when I started this program, my Atlantic Canadian reach was 22,000. And I'll share this the story a little bit more, but I was able to significantly increase my reach through Facebook within just a short number of months. You can also find me on YouTube, on Instagram, and I begrudgingly am now on TikTok. So that is a journey of my own that I'm moving forward with. What I want to do here is I want to share, this is a bit of a compilation video. And so what I want to share is both the good and bad of mobile video. The really beautiful thing about sharing things on Facebook is that it doesn't need to be perfect. And for that reason, mobile video doesn't need to be perfect. The challenge when you start video is that not only are you learning the challenge of storytelling in a new way, but you're also at the same time learning the technical aspect of shooting and editing. So it's a big thing to take on. This is really just an example to say you could begin here, but you do get better. And also to say, my first video, I almost didn't actually publish because it was excruciating. I saw so many mistakes, and then I published it, and within a few days, it had 100,000 views on Facebook. So that's to say, you will get better, but even if you're not the most technical, beautifully produced video, you can actually achieve quite a bit with Facebook. I was harder on myself, and then I also realized that it's not always about shooting something technically perfect, but having people connect with you. So let me just share this with you. Stop share.
There's some really good chowder. Wow, that was really good. Pete, great patio weather at the Nook and Cranny. We are here because it's known to have local food, serve a lot of seasonal dishes, and then also have Nova Scotia wine and beer. So we're having salty dog, which is from Truro as well. Picked up a bacon fat molasses cookie for the road. I love molasses cookies. You can't beat happy hour hopscotch. I recommend the bourbon and basil, and sit there thinking about what you want to eat and drink on your next trip to St. John. We are trying the creamed lobster, and if you've never had creamed lobster before, it is unique to Yarmouth. Jam on bacon. Bacon is good. One of my favorite things to do in all of Nova Scotia is the sculpture garden at Cosby's. and it is like nothing you've ever seen. The artist is incredibly talented, and he creates these concrete, fantastical creatures as you walk through the forest.
From the decor to the food to the patrons, everything is fantastic. If the tartare with cured egg yolk is on special, definitely order it.
My, oh my. My, oh my. A kiss, and so I did.
Ribs, I think it's an anchovy chili rib, sausages, and then also brisket. Lots of meat.
Okay. So I just wanted to share that to show you that obviously some of the footage was better than others. I had technical errors in some of the things, but overall, the last 8 months has been really an eye-opening process for me, in that learning to be a beginner again, and then also extending my skills to have a visual storytelling aspect, and then also the technical aspect of it. So why is Facebook? Why am I talking about Facebook? And I think that, you know, no social media is best. No social media platform is better than the other. They all have their strengths, they all have their faults. And Facebook was a real opportunity for me because a large portion of my audience is 35 plus, and they're on Facebook. And so when I looked at what I wanted to do with video, I knew that my YouTube channel skewed a little bit younger.
That'd be great.
YouTube,
Also, just to make it clear, you know, like it's all, like it's just easy. Like we just don't have to have three things. Do you know what I mean?
I'm sorry, could people please
Yeah.
mute themselves if they're not speaking, if you're not presenting? Thank you. If you have questions, please use the chat function. Thank you.
Okay. Also, as I mentioned before, content is king. And so I think that is really something that is inspiring, especially for traditional writers, in that it's not just about how things look, but it's actually the authenticity and the storytelling to reach people. So, you know, you can have 4K beauty shots with an entire crew and a beautiful narration. But the reality is that on social media, people want to connect. And on Facebook, people want to connect. And it's not just millennials or Gen Z. They want to connect with people of all ages. And so there's something really interesting to capitalize on there. YouTube is also SEO driven. So while both Facebook and YouTube are both video platforms, what's really nice about Facebook is that it is shareable. And so while you may not have the followers or reach for that moment, you can actually extend it by having people who are interested share your work. So as I mentioned, when I first started this back in June, July, I didn't have a really active Atlantic Canadian audience, but I knew I could still reach them if I shared. So when I first started, my audience was 22,000 people. And most of those 22,000 people didn't actually see my content because of the Facebook algorithm, which we all know about and are frustrated with. But I knew that there was an opportunity to grow on that if I was consistent. So this is my YouTube page. It looks very different. And as I said, it skews to a younger audience. And as Atlantic Canada is not a widely searched topic on YouTube, I knew results would be lower there. I also knew that my YouTube audience skews younger and they're looking for more bucket list trips. So for example, if you look at from 7 years ago, I have a video on Italy with 150,000 views, Galapagos 85, Ecuador, and actually Calgary is doing all right at 26,000. But still, I knew that the opportunity to reach a lot of people on YouTube immediately wasn't as great. However, these are my first 4 Facebook videos. So the first video on Yarmouth reached over 100,000. Petite Riviere, which I learned quite a bit from, 5,000. Liverpool is almost approaching 39, and then Annapolis Royal 28. And these are all small towns in Nova Scotia. Through that, I was able within 60 days to reach over 110,000 Atlantic Canadians. And what was really great about that was as they were liking my work, they were also beginning to follow me. So not only was I reaching them for this moment, I was keeping them with me. And there's many of them are still with me today from that initial Yarmouth video. So how do you build reach on Facebook? You need to beat the algorithm. I guess you don't need to beat it, but you certainly do need to play by the rules. To do this, you need to have an active page. So you get what you put into any social media platform. You can't simply post and then ghost. If you want your audience, you need to be there and you need to show up daily. So once a month, I schedule a post for every morning. So I know that at least once a day, I have scheduled 30 posts over the month. And what that does is it keeps people on your page. Once they miss your page once or twice, you're going to fall out of the algorithm. And sometimes they're memes. A lot of times they're questions. Sometimes they're on my own video. I also share work from my partners. Basically anything that I think will encourage people to comment, like, and share, I post. And then I am there several times a day responding to questions, comments, and I'm encouraging conversation. At the same time, I'm also a member of other relevant Facebook groups. So all of the local Atlantic Canada travel and food also community pages I'm a member of, and I participate actively, not only to look at trends and see what people are asking, but also for suggestions and for people to feel like I'm also a member of this community. And that's really important, which I will focus on in a little bit. So the blueprints for video success. There are the technical aspects. You need to meet Facebook guidelines. It needs to be 3 minutes long, subtitles, and you need to have a cover photo. A cover photo is so important. I'm just going to go back up to my pictures. Sometimes people use a screenshot and Facebook will just choose whatever it wants to choose. That is not motivating. People want to look at a pretty picture. They want to have a title to it. On Facebook, I do not put my face on a lot of the images because people don't really care about me, unlike on YouTube. So for here, I try to pick something that I think people will be interested in clicking through. And fortunately, Atlantic Canada has some really beautiful landscapes. I post evergreen video consistently. So once a week, I post a new video. And that is because video has incredible reach. Once that video is posted, I send the link to all my partners immediately. So if I have worked with the destination, and I've been so fortunate for Atlantic Canada Travel that I've been able to work with our various industry partners, I send a link to them. I also send a link to all of the businesses featured. And then I also send a link to the Chamber of Commerce, the MLA, the MP, basically anyone on Facebook that I can find, I send a link to. And then I also go back to all my community Facebook groups that allow it. So some groups don't allow you to post your own work, or they will only allow you to post if it features multiple businesses. But because I'm a member, I can go back to those and share. And I also have that relationship. And then a very basic thing is I share on my personal page and I ask all my friends to share it. And what I have learned is that videos that are immediately shared with the first few hours always, always, always outperform. And so when I'm working with a destination, I do let them know when I'm going to share it because I need them to share it immediately. And when I send notes to all of the businesses featured, I do explain to them that if they can share it today or even that morning, that it has a greater chance of visibility and that reach will be extended and more people will see it. Some destinations are really good at it. Let me go back here. So Yarmouth is excellent at doing this. Anytime I share something, they share it immediately. And they also contact other people and let them know to share it. And so we've been able to do a lot of really great things together, and we've partnered on 3 videos, which have been very well received. And as a destination that was once only known for the ferry that goes to Maine, I'd like to think that now people realize there's more to do. And actually, I do know that because people send me photos and emails and they tell me they also have finally gone to Yarmouth for the first time. But smaller destinations where maybe they will share it a week later, those videos just don't do as well. I only have so much power within my own network, my own channel, my own Facebook page. It's really about having a partnership. So if you are working with any destinations or small businesses or festivals, things like that, it's always important to connect with them beforehand, let them know that you are putting out a video and hope that they will share, give them an idea of when it will be so that you can kind of coordinate all of these shares going out at once. What's interesting about this too is, and I'm sure everyone here has noticed this when they've written about a small town. Small towns do really well. I get a lot of support from small towns. Tatamagouche is only a town of 2,000 people, and I've shot 2 videos there, each reaching over 35,000 because there are a lot of cottagers. But then, an hour down the road, there's Truro, and the community doesn't share as much, and so it doesn't get as much reach. However, what I do is I share the first time, and then usually 3 months later, I share it again because there are some people who still haven't seen that video, and because it's evergreen content, it's still relevant. So what about YouTube? I think that when you create video, you can create it with the mind of building for Facebook and also building for YouTube. You do need to think about the long-term goal. For me, my long-term goal is actually to be on YouTube more actively and to grow my following there. Some of my audience from Facebook is migrating there, but most are not. And I think that's pretty realistic. I believe in interacting with my audience where they are. I don't always like to move them to a new platform. Even those that may have gone over and decided to follow me on YouTube, I know will probably do videos on Facebook, and you have to be okay with that. You can have different people on different audiences. You need to be there, but you do need to be realistic. And the interesting thing about YouTube is that it is very SEO driven. It takes more time to build an audience. That content is not as shareable. People might share it, but certainly not as easily as they do on Facebook. And there's a lot more research that goes into that than simply sharing, as I have the last few months on Facebook of, day trips around Nova Scotia, PEI, and then in St. John. So I wanted to stop here for some questions, just to see if anyone has questions generally about what I've been doing on Facebook and then working with the algorithm.
And I can jump in here, Angelina. There's been some great questions in the chat here. So just to start off with the first question, do you put the same video on Facebook that you do on YouTube?
I would say they are now about 90% the same. And so there are certainly times that I'm aware that something will perform well on Facebook that may not perform as well on YouTube, but then I'm always surprised. To be honest, in Atlantic Canada, a lot of people are moving here. And so some videos surprise me that they're doing well, but it is very much SEO driven. So when you work on YouTube, what you title it, keywords, what you say in the video, what your description is, all of those things, it's like a whole other world. If you're not really into SEO, that will probably drive you crazy. Fortunately, it is a part of what I do on my website, so it came a bit more naturally. And then on YouTube, you try to keep them on your channel by linking to other videos to kind of keep the watch time up. But in general, right now, I am posting about 90% the same.
Perfect. Okay, next question for you. Do you, and this is, for people that don't necessarily want to be on camera, do you have to put yourself in the video to connect with viewers, / how important do you think it is to be on camera in these videos?
I think it's crucial. So I actually have a slide that says, yes, you have to be on camera. I don't want to be on camera, to be honest. If you go to my YouTube channel from, before this time, I am very rarely on camera. It's a lot of vignettes. However, people really connect with people. And, I'm 43. I'm not a millennial. I'm not in a bikini on a beach, and I'm not going to be. But people still find it engaging. And I think we forget that everyone can have their own audience. And you kind of need to get over yourself a little bit. I needed to, it was very difficult for me to do that and to be on camera. And even still, I feel self-conscious all the time. It's not easy. However, it gets easier. And the interesting thing is, when you start to look at a lot of video that performs well, it's just regular people. It's just kind of people doing their thing. And so it's not always that picture perfect thing. And I think that's what people relate to. I have a lot of people come up to me on the street and in cafes and say, "Are you bacon is magic?" And it's because they feel like I'm their friend, like I'm an extension of their peer group. And I'm just sharing with them where I ate last week. And I think that's kind of a special connection that is very different and not aspirational like you would see, YouTubers who are doing crazy things and that are young and beautiful. I think people really do want to see people who look like them. So my suggestion is, if you want, if you really are serious about it, yes, you don't have to be on it, but I do think you do need to be on it.
You're like a celebrity, and I just love that. You create your own brand.
A celebrity in my hometown of 5,000 people. So.
Amazing. Okay, next question for you, kind of about the revenue. So do you get revenue from views on Facebook like you do on YouTube? And I'll kind of combine two questions here because I might answer it in the same vein. What is your revenue goal with these videos? Do they drive traffic to your website?
Right. So I think if you are looking at Facebook video simply to drive revenue, no, it's not. I mean, I think you would have to do daily videos and they all have 100,000 in order to start earning money from Facebook. But to be honest, the same thing is true for YouTube. Most YouTube creators are not making very much money off of YouTube. It's certainly not their #1 revenue generator. So I just took a course with a very large YouTuber who has over 400,000 subscribers. And I think she was making $20,000 a year from YouTube. So even getting that big, which would be my dream, is not going to be the big revenue goal. So there are a number of things that you can do with that. For me, when I first started this, my goal was to build a skill that I could partner with brands and destinations. So it was, again, something that I could offer that was not on my website and I could diversify. The other goal was I really wanted to connect with my own readers in a different way. And connecting with readers eventually can also lead to different revenue paths, depending if you want to sell products or guides or how you want to do that. The best way to connect with people is through video. And then the second question was, do they drive traffic to your website?
Yeah, so more like what's the revenue goal with these videos? Is it more so about driving the traffic to your website?
Yeah, so in this case, it's about building a brand. It was purely brand building. I was very fortunate in that I was able to partner in Atlantic Canada because we had a much easier year than most of Canada, and travel was open here. So I was able to work with Pam in Nova Scotia and Isabel in PEI, and then also Jillian in St. John, and with Yarmouth as a separate partnerships. So there always is that possibility to partner with brands. But for me, it was, I wanted to take this time to build that connection with people and to build my brand. And the revenue side of it was actually a delightful surprise. And in terms of, does it drive traffic to your website? So I've been doing this for 11 years. And I will tell you this, do not try to drive people from one thing to another. So people who follow me on Instagram, do not go to my website. People who follow me on YouTube don't know about my website either. Yes, you could probably get some people to go to your website because of videos. If you give a call out, maybe you're offering a guide or something where they can get additional information. But I really think that you need to engage with people where they are, not try to get them to move somewhere else. And then also realize that within a business, it's not always about traffic or revenue. Sometimes you're doing things to build your profile or to build your connection that can later on lead to those things, but aren't always a direct connection. I will say this though, because I do have such an engaged audience on Facebook, when I do post content from my website, which is relevant for them, I do get quite a bit of traffic from that.
Perfect. Love it. Okay, I'm going to move on. We have some more great questions, and I think a few questions that we can probably answer in the more technical component a little bit later, or that you might handle there. So I'm going to leave a few for later. But another question for you now is, in terms of, you were mentioning earlier how you send the links to the GMOs or the partners, the tourism boards that you're working with. So do you mean that you're sending those through email or just in terms of social tagging?
No, I message them on Facebook. So I find out, again, engage with people where you want them to engage. So if I'm working with a destination, certainly I have that email connection with them. Or if, to be honest, sometimes I'm in a restaurant or in a shop or somewhere and I end up meeting the owner and we exchange emails or we connect again on Facebook. And I will simply say to them, you know what? I'm sharing this video. I'm going to include you in it. If I sent you the link, would you share it? And then in that email to them, I do say to them, you know, Facebook videos that are shared within the first few hours get a lot more reach. I would love to send lots of people to your audience. If you could share this link and I include the link to the video, I think it would be a win-win experience. And I've only ever encountered people not sharing in larger cities. And when I say larger cities, I mean Charlottetown. So Charlottetown, I did not have a great experience with the local businesses sharing. I suspect the same would be with Halifax. But then in PEI, in the small town of Surrey, like I feel like everyone shared it and it was a really successful video. I got a lot of feedback and people were really excited. So I don't know, it just depends on the culture, maybe the time, or I try not to share on Mondays because a lot of restaurants are closed. And I try to share in the morning before they're open because, you know, if I'm doing something that's really restaurant focused, then, you know, they're going to be in service. And so maybe whoever handles the social account is not going to be there. You can tag, absolutely. Tagging, I do tag them in all the videos, but I also do follow up. And so part of the work is creating the video. And I would say I spend at least 2 or 3 hours also in communication with people the day that I've posted, helping them, or sending the initial message to them, answering any questions, and then also getting my message out to all of the like 25 Atlantic Canadian groups that I'm in.
Perfect. I think that pretty much sums it up. And I did want to add, in that vein of talking about partners and, you know, tagging different businesses that you've worked with. So if you're working with, you know, partners in a editorial capacity, how do you handle tagging those businesses on Facebook if it's not sponsored content? Are there certain rules around that? And would you be able to explain those rules?
It's the same. It's the same for me. So if I feature a business, I mean, no one is obligated to share my work, no one. And in some cases, because we've had travel restrictions, even the destination has not been able to share the day that I post because they something has happened and they've been told that they cannot promote travel at that time. And that's perfectly fine. But I find, because I share a lot of small business work, giving them the extra nudge to say, can you share this, often helps them realize, oh, maybe I should share this. Some people are really on it, some people are not. At the end of the day, my goal is to bring more people to those businesses, to promote local travel. And so, yes, I personally get more views, but they also get more exposure. And in that case, it's a win-win. And readers like it too. Right now, we're all somewhat stuck in or allowed out at times. And so everyone's looking for something to do. And so the idea and the spirit of helping each other out really pulls through.
And to build on that, when you're working on these videos and planning, working with the partners and planning to shoot everything, do you set this all up ahead of time with the businesses? Like if you're shooting in a cafe or a pub, is there preparation that goes in advance of the video for that?
Sure. I would say maybe in 10% of cases, businesses will know that I'm coming. And I don't actually like businesses to know that I'm coming. I would rather kind of do it myself. And because if I don't have a great experience, in some cases I am going there for the first time. In some cases, I already know I'm going to like it. I've been there a million times. I'm sharing my favorite tips. In other cases, I'm going places for the first time. And I have had a case where I personally do not recommend anything that I would not go back to, would not recommend to, my best friend. And so I did have a situation once where it was not a great experience and I did not include them in the video. And so that kind of gets you into sticky situations where people are like, why didn't you include me? And so I prefer for it to be a more natural experience of, me, the pretense of a lot of my videos have been day trips. And so I prefer not to let people know. And then in some cases I show up places and they're closed and I share that. But I think it's a more genuine experience for me if they don't know. And then I just have to be really comfortable with bringing my camera out. And that's, I think, part of the beauty of mobile is everybody has their phones out. I just have, like, my setup is this. And so my phone kind of goes in here. And so it's a little bit more than just someone bringing their phone out. However, because social media is so big right now, there are lots of people just doing whatever who kind of have those setups. I would say now some people will recognize me, but because they know that I only share the things that I love, no one is really nervous and everybody is actually quite encouraging. I've never had someone say to me, like, don't shoot video. And I've never had a business really say, I'm so mad that you featured me.
Could you imagine?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Okay, so I have one more question for you now, and then I'll kind of let you carry on because I think some of the questions that we still have yet to answer, you might answer in your latter half of this presentation. So if you don't already have a blog with a built-in audience, how hard is it to generate one using videos?
I think it does take a little bit longer. However, if you have a niche, I think it can be something that actually moves quite quickly. So for example, in Nova Scotia, I have seen a number of Nova Scotia staycation groups start and are doing very, very well. And so if you can niche down to say where you live or maybe your province, you could have a Facebook only audience at that point. My personal opinion is don't just keep it to Facebook because then you're always depending on their algorithm. Like you should start a site or a mailing list on your own because you own that and you're not at Facebook's mercy. But, if you shoot a couple of videos that do really well and a lot of people share them, I mean, send a note to all your friends saying, please share them. I do that. Then eventually people will find you and you can build that following quite quickly. As I said, in 60 days, I went from 22,000 to 110. And so that was, 80,000 people who did not know me were exposed to me in 60 days.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. first portion of questions. I will hand it back over to you to kind of continue on with your presentation, Angelina, and then we can kind of cover these last questions in the second half.
Sure. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about kind of the technical aspects of it. I don't have a lot to share on this because I think there are so many really great YouTube channels and resources for this, but I will direct you to a couple of things and just give you my number one piece of advice of what I learned on mobile that made things a lot better. So, like writing, you need to plan the story in advance. So shooting on the fly makes editing really, really difficult. What I realized was if I did the research in advance and I knew I was going to a town, my goal is always, I want somewhere to eat, somewhere to pick up like tea or coffee, and then somewhere to something that was picturesque to see. So some kind of scenery. And because I'm in Atlantic Canada and because we were in the middle of the pandemic, I wanted it to be something that was economically feasible for people. So I wasn't going to the best restaurants. I wanted people to feel like they could get out, have a day trip, and go somewhere nice. And the way I planned that was all of those Facebook groups, the staycation groups. You know, every small town everywhere kind of has their own little community group. And I would say to people like, where should I get coffee? Like, who has the best cinnamon roll? Those were a lot of the things that I covered were bakeries and coffee shops and very affordable restaurants. I wanted people to feel like it was easy. So I knew I was going to those places in advance. Sometimes those places were closed, as I mentioned, and it was not on Google. They just happened to be closed for the day because of, you know, the chaotic hours of the last year. And I just shared that. I'm like, hey, I heard this place was really great. I'm devastated that I couldn't go because I've heard they've got the best chowder. I guess we're going to have to go somewhere else. And then I would just kind of do that. In later videos, I would do things where maybe I was invited to go out winter foraging for the day. And I didn't know how that was going to go because I was on a tour and I had never been on it. That makes editing hard. So if you can do something where you know you're just going to hit 3 or 4 places and to do it chronologically, that's the easiest way to get into it. One of the things I would say is talking heads are boring. So I don't like interviewing people at all unless I think they're very, very interesting. And even then, I may start with them talking and then I quickly move to something else, showing them do something. So this is a rule that I learned from public relations, like show people, don't tell them what things are like. And I think that's the same thing for video. A talking head telling you how great something is so boring. So just introduce the person and then show how interesting that place is. You don't need them to talk about it. I think even for me, sometimes I don't like to talk very much on camera. So I may start with my voiceover, but then I quickly move to what I'm actually sharing. So yes, I do think you need to be on camera. People connect with real people, your age, gender, however horrible you feel like you look on camera, does not matter. There is an audience for everyone. I think that one of the best things to do is wear a lot of color. So you almost never see me in black. And if you just wear something of color, then I think people will focus on that rather than how you feel like your face looks on camera. And eventually you do get more used to it. And the more that you see yourself, there are things that you realize you should stop doing. In terms of approaching what to shoot, if you're doing an introduction to a town or a restaurant or something, shoot it several times. So I explain the same thing 4 or 5 times. I do it in different places. I say it different ways. Then later on, I just pick the best one. There is nothing worse than realizing that something that I shot, like I looked terrible and I really just do not want to be on camera for that because then I either have to fake it or drive back, or maybe do a voiceover. I've just learned, just shoot a lot and you become more comfortable. And then share your experience. And so this is really about you being on camera. So I like to talk about how I feel about a place. how I feel particularly this year as someone who has not spent this much time in Nova Scotia, about discovering things that I didn't know and realizing that places are really special, and why didn't I visit here before, or people here are so nice, or, you know, you want to share how a place touched you. And that, I think, is what people connect with, and that's why they share it. Because also, people in small towns, they never get enough credit for things, and they feel like, you know, everyone talks about the big cities. I mean, certainly in Atlantic Canada, we think that, you know, most of the world thinks that Canada ends at Quebec. And so anytime they get a little bit of love and see someone enjoying where they are, they really want to share that with other people because they're proud of where they're from. Okay, this is basically the only real technical tip I'm going to give you, because I did not learn it until halfway through. Of course, just like in photography, the golden hour is best, but it is not always realistic. So I want to show you how to easily change your exposure. My phone is an Android, it's a Google Pixel. However, iPhone also works similarly to this. If you open up your camera or your video and you touch on the screen, it will change the focal point. It will focus on where you pointed, and then it will also change the exposure to whatever that point is. If you look at the slider, you can slide it up to make it brighter, or down to make it less bright, which is so crucial when it's, you know, 12 noon and everything is so harsh. And then when you get it to where you want, you go up to the top and you can lock the exposure and focus. And what this does is, if you're panning and something is bright and then something is dark, you don't get that flicker. And so I learned that, I think, my third or fourth video in, and it made a big difference for me. And it made a big difference in editing, because it is so much easier to shoot something that is too bright, or it's so much easier to lock something if it's too bright or too dark than to fix it while in editing, especially when you're learning editing. My editing strategy. I am by far no expert in editing. However, I will tell you that when I first started, it would take me 2 or 3 days to edit a video. And now I can kind of do it within 4 to 6 hours. And part of that is I've developed an editing strategy, but I've also become much smarter at shooting things. So I'm not shooting everything. I now kind of go into, I have a plan. When I get to a restaurant, I need to shoot myself outside it, saying, hey, I'm about to go in here. I also take video shots of it without me in it. And then when I go inside, before I sit down, I do pans of the room. Like, all of these things I have learned just from the process of basically screwing up and not having those things, and then just writing notes to myself. I prefer shorter clips. So I prefer clips that are under a minute. Even if I'm shooting something, I'll just stop it. Like, if someone's talking, I'll stop it and start again. I find it easier to deal with in editing rather than having a clip that's 5 minutes long and realizing I just want 3 small parts of that, because then I've got to edit those out. It just takes a long time. So when I get home, I review all my clips. I go through and watch all of them. I remove the mistakes and the junk clips. That's all I do the first round. And then I organize them into theme folders. So in the beginning of my videos, I usually have some kind of intro of me saying a couple of different things, or maybe it's something funny and some music and some shots of things. And then I'm introing the video, and then I have folders for each specific business, and then usually an outro. And so I then divide all of the footage into these smaller folders, because it just feels more manageable. And so it doesn't seem like, you know, you've got 100 clips and you don't know where to start. Then I go into each folder and I organize them into what order I think I would want them to appear. If I'm shooting a chronological video, which I love to do, it's very easy. I just remove the clips that I don't think I will use. And then finally, I open my editing software and I begin to drop in the clips and I begin to work on the edits. And so to do this, it means that I'm not dealing with all of the clips. I'm usually dealing with 40%, because, as I said before, I've been on camera introing something like 5 or 6 times. So I get rid of all of them except for the one that I think is the best. And then I'm left with things that feels a little bit more manageable, and I can probably edit in 4 to 6 hours. My goal actually is to edit within 2 to 3 hours. but I don't know a lot of people who do it that quickly. But I do know I've gotten a lot faster because I'm doing it more and more. The technical essentials, the elements that, that I use. I do have, and I'm going to list, I put a page on my site with all of these, so don't feel like you have to write all of this down. But I'm just going to share with you what I've used in the beginning and the things that I've kind of upgraded to. So the essentials. I have, this is a Gorilla Pod. It is just a tripod, which is great to use. I use it to hold and shoot myself, but also it's really great to use on restaurant tables. So I do that. And yes, some people look at me, but you kind of have to get over that. It's really great if you're going to a restaurant or if you're going places to go with me. It's with my mother. My mother goes, I stick it in front of her. It kind of looks like I'm talking to her. Some people notice, some people don't. On my phone, oh, I'm sorry. So this is the Gorilla Pod, and this is just a mobile adapter. So you can turn it this way or this way. The Gorilla Pod, I think that I linked to is about $40. And then these things are maybe 10. I've got the Amazon links, but honestly, you can buy them at any camera store. I just know that I used a lot of Amazon in the last year. One of the things that I had that I actually ended up using a lot was this. This is called a Moment wide angle lens. It comes with a very specific phone case, and I can, let me see, put this in. And then I can take wide angles. So I know a lot of like the iPhone and most of the Android phones now have like a really good wide angle that you can take. My Pixel is okay. And so I use my phone as my primary camera for photos and for video. And so I had this actually for photos to take pictures of rooms and restaurants and things where I needed really wide angle, but it also works really well on video. Just one second. Sorry, guys. I just had to tell people to be quiet here. All right. Add-ons, car mount. So you can get a mobile car mount that goes right on your dash. And so when you're going places like I did this summer, I did the Cabot Trail. It holds it steady and it actually takes really great steady footage, and it's very easy to use. And then one thing else that I've used is this. I've kept it in the box, but it is a gimbal. And basically what you do is you hold it, and if you walk, it stops the shakiness. Again, this is an add-on. I like it because it also has a tripod at the bottom, so you can use it in restaurants, but it gives really steady footage. Not necessarily. I would say I shot the first 8 videos with this, and that was it. And then in terms of what I use now, I did buy a Sony ZV-1. So it is a vlogging camera. So I can see myself. I put it on here. However, I still use my phone all the time. And the reason I use my phone all the time is the footage is still great. I can still shoot high enough resolution. And there are just some times that I'm places that I don't want to be so suspicious that I've got my phone out. And so I don't want to have my camera out. So I still use my phone for some shots for almost every video. And then I got a drone because I flew a drone once and I thought it was amazing. In terms of editing, edit on whatever free software you have. So if you're on a Mac, you can use iMovie. If you're on a PC, there's one called Filmora, and there are a lot of other free editing software. I use Premiere Pro, and the reason I did that is because I have a membership to Adobe Cloud, and I was very familiar with Adobe. And so I basically taught myself how to do basic edits on Premiere Pro. A lot of people advised against this, but the vision in my head was I wanted to work on a piece of software where I could build to it. And so I could grow with the software. And so now each week I try to learn how to do something different. That was the right decision for me because I really wanted to invest in video. And my goal is when I begin to travel again, I will be shooting video first and the blog will be second. But everyone has to make their own choice. Like, frankly, if you just want to use, what I think also like Windows Movie Maker, that's also free and on most PCs. And then the second thing I would say is always shoot horizontal and vertical. You've got Instagram, Reels, TikTok, all of these things. It doesn't hurt just to, if you do it once horizontally, then to do it vertically. And then finally, I just wanted to say it is okay to be a beginner. This was the hardest part of learning video editing because I had been doing my site for so long. 11 years, I had it down pat. To learn and start from the beginning, to know that I wasn't good, to have a vision of what I wanted to produce and not to be able to do it was really hard. But I did get better. It really meant sticking to doing weekly videos. It took up a lot of time, but it became easier and faster. And I'm really thankful that I took this time to do it. So now, more questions.
Thank you, Angelina. That was fantastic. And as I suspected, you did answer a lot of those technical questions, a lot of questions about what software you're using, the type of tools that you're using to make those videos. So I think for the most part, you've done a great job of kind of covering all of those basics. I think
someone asked if you can edit on your phone. I do know people who edit on their phone. I think for me, going through all of the footage, it would be difficult. If I only had sometimes I only have like 2 or 3 shots and maybe I'm doing a quick video for social media. You can use iShot, which is great. And if you have an Adobe Cloud membership, Adobe Rush is on the phone. And I think it's pretty easy to use.
Perfect. And I think, just for any media that have more questions, I would say, Angelina, your website seems to be a great resource to kind of go and connect and kind of learn a bit more there. So with that, I just wanted to thank you so much for everything, Angelina, today. It's been such an eye-opener for so many people. And I think that everyone now will just have the most superb video content on the internet.
You know what? I just want to put one thing up. I'm just going to screenshot one more thing because I want to share with people. Certainly, you can reach out to me. I am more than happy to share what I know with you. And then also, as I mentioned, I put everything on baconismagic.ca/TMAC. And then also, here is my email address. Please feel free to email me if you have any questions or want to know how to get started or anything I use. I'm always here.
Perfect. And I think that's a great way to kind of end here. So, Katrine, I'll pass it back to you to kind of close this out.
Great, thank you so much. A big thank you to the Atlantic chapter for collaborating on today's event. And thank you, Ashley, for hosting and moderating all the Q&As. And of course, a special thank you to Angelina for sharing your knowledge with us today. I also want to give a quick thank you to the TMAC PD committee, Tanya Kadikian, Chris Mitchell, Liz Campbell, and Pat Brennan. And a big thank you to all you TMAC members for all your support of PDs, for joining us today for the super interesting Q&A. So thanks for your time and thank you for being here. We will see you next time. Be well.